Well, hello, hello. How is everybody? Happy Sunday from beautiful Portland, Oregon. It's going to be 115 degrees today. People are concerned about the power grid, and people are reaching out to me to see if I'm okay. I'm doing very well, thank you very much. Our electricity is on, we're okay. You have to find out what the bare minimum is you can tolerate, so that we don't put too much pressure on the grid. My friend Renee and I are headed to the coast, as is everybody else evidently in Portland and beyond. So all of the hotels are booked. We've tried every hotel, every motel, and you should see the prices, by the way. They're charging in a motel over $500. So the good news is that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of camping stores all along the way. And if worse comes to worse, you can buy a tent for $85, a two-person tent, and then you can look up at the stars and have a wonderful time. So that's basically what's happening over here. Well, we're leaving at 12:30 today, Renee and I, or whenever she gets here. I guess I'll work till about 12:30 with you all. And then we are headed to beautiful seaside, Astoria, the Ecola Forest, which, by the way, there are a lot of UFO sightings in that area. Hopefully we won't get abducted, but we might be able to see some great phenomenon. Hope I don't scare my friend. I don't want to get abducted. All right, so I want to thank everyone here. Thank you so much for honoring me with the opportunity to entertain you on this beautiful Sunday brunch that we always get together on Sunday. And feel free to tell me what you're having. I hope I don't have any seeds in my mouth. I had a mango berry goat yogurt smoothie with chia. That was my breakfast. Nice and cooling. It also had a scoop of protein and greens by the company Paradise, which I always recommend, even though I don't work for the company, because it has lots of fruits and veggies. So that was my brunch. Hopefully you had a good brunch too. Let's go ahead and give gratitude to everybody that was kind enough to join us today, starting with Melinda Ducher. I liked her comment. I thought that was very funny. Welcome, Stephanie. Let's give a shout out to Stephanie. She became a fairy and angels member. So, of course, we always have to ask people, which are you? Are you a fairy, mischievous, fun-loving, a little naughty? Or are you an angel? I think we're all a bit of both. Hello to Tina Perci, also a member. We welcome you. Terry Renner is in the house, our TA extraordinaire. We're very happy to see her. Mother 3 Gacha is in the house, the face painter, a member. We welcome you. Misty Rose, hello. Julie Tirado, welcome, is also helping today with moderating. Hello, Bugs Bunny, member, and probably one of the funnier people we have the honor of spending time with. Equus3333, hi to you. Hi, Fern. We'll continue to say hi to everyone. Marie Wells, Connor Thomas, Kay Gillette, etc. as we go along. So we've got so much to cover. I've got a couple notes. Peanut butter and banana sandwich. Very, very nice. I'm getting a little bit of a runny nose. My allergies are so much better, by the way. I've been drinking. Oh, hi, Mila. How are you? I've been drinking some of my own teas for allergies. You know, doctors are terrible patients. So we can make the teas for people. We can do all of that. But then when I have to take care of myself, I completely don't know what to do. So I've been doing better. But I do have a bit of a runny nose. So I'm just going to grab something. Hi, Mila. How are you? Mila is in the house. She knows the drill. She knows what's going on. She says hello, and I suspect she's probably going to bounce up here and say hi to everybody in a second. Well, what do y'all think of some of what's going on in the world? Lots going on. Okay, the first order of business is we want to give a shout out to everybody in the who is celebrating Pride of the LGBTQ community, and of course, Mila is an ally. Right, you're an ally. Whoa. See that? I mentioned the LGBTQ community, and she said, I got to come and celebrate Pride with everybody. But I suspect she may have an addiction. Thank you also to the fan that sent this to Mila. As you can see, there's intense focus on what is in here. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So yeah, lots of news coming out about the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ rights. Come on. You want to come down and get it? No? All right. It's your call. Anyway. So, but yeah. Predicted temperatures in Death Valley, 120. So Death Valley is only 4 degrees hotter than Portland, Oregon. Wow. Yeah, so Pride is going on everywhere. I've been checking to see how the different Pride parades are happening, if they're going on without a hitch all over the world. We had a very nice Pride in Tel Aviv. I'm very, very proud of how the LGBTQ community as people know here, I'm dual citizen with the state of Israel. So it really makes me proud to see the work that's happening there, to see that Pride is now being accepted. And we're really making some serious progress in Israel, and I'm very grateful for that. As for other areas of the news regarding LGBTQ community, unfortunately, the rest of the world is not up to the program. It looks like the Pope is in hot water again. Yes. Evidently, he's been giving mixed messages about LGBTQ rights, the right to marriage. He's basically come out saying that he acknowledges the right of secular marriage, but they're having a real hard time with this idea of granting basic human rights, right to marriage, to people who are LGBTQ. The problem now, evidently, and we can throw on it, is that the Pope and his cronies in the Vatican, which I think isn't that supposed to be a separate country, a separate principality than Italy? So I have no idea why they're taking any opinion about what Italy's civil rights policies, etc. I really think the Vatican should stick to, taking care of their own stuff. But evidently, they've been pressuring the Italian government to try encouraging restrictive rights for the LGBTQ community in Italy. So I think we should probably throw on that in honor of LGBTQ in the Pride community. So that was really disappointing. And it's just sad. It's sad that people use religion to become bigots and fascists. That's certainly not what we support here on this channel. And it's just unfortunate. More bad news, unfortunately, for the LGBTQ community in Istanbul, in Turkey. The Pride Parade, which was supposed to be something positive and happy, people were in a festive mood, etc. Police attacked innocent people who were engaged in the Pride Parade. People were beaten with clubs. They were tear gassed. And 25 innocent people who were marching were arrested. So unfortunately, Istanbul also, what do we do? Do we start boycotting these countries and hit them where it hurts financially? I think so. I think that there has to be some kind of an outcry that if these countries are not going to respect basic human rights, then we cannot in good conscience visit or support them financially. And it has to be something that we're unified about. I would love to visit Turkey. I think it's probably a beautiful country and the people are probably really nice, but it's one of those situations. Do we visit and financially support these places? And last, unfortunately, anti-gay laws are being pushed in Hungary with their new fascist government, which also is pushing to it's done a lot of other things, and it's got a long history of anti-Semitism in Hungary. But the government is basically in Hungary launching. My great grandparents come from Hungary on my mother's side, so it's just very disappointing that they're moving again in the wrong direction in Hungary. So with government launching a series of bills that basically are advocating and supporting hate crimes against the LGBTQ community. So that is unfortunately what's going on there. Let's go ahead and open up the floor and talk about it. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, right? Yeah, so, we're on the right side of history, right? And it's almost like I was thinking today in my morning meditation, what would I say to these people that are traditionalists, that are holding on to these archaic ideas? I would say in 100 years from now, you're not going to look so good historically. I mean, if you're a prince or a king or a pope or somebody in a position of power that did not stand up at this time on the right side of history, the world will not forget. Yeah. You may think that we're progressive, whatevers, but in another 100, 200 years from now, you're just going to look like a fascist because you're a fascist. So anyway, I just had to get it off my chest and say that stuff because I'm an ally and I support you. All right, so it's like another Inquisition. So we can definitely throw on that today about, what's going to be happening in those movements. I think the main thing is we need to be organized. We need to be organized with our money, and we need to have a list of countries that we will ban financial support and tourism from until they get with the program. It's like what happened in Nevada with LGBTQ rights. What happened? Everybody financially benefited. When you give people human rights, everyone benefits. Who doesn't want to go to a wonderful, fantastic gay wedding in Las Vegas and have Liberace perform? I've personally gone to those weddings. They're freaking the best weddings. So everybody benefits, right? So we have to be on the right side of history. Right, Mila? Do you agree or not? No? All right. So the next bit of news, my fellow sensitive people, looks to be that the UFO report from U.S. intelligence is finally out. Don't know how you all feel about this, but it did cover 5 categories. Yes, so it was covering various different things that we currently know about these unidentified objects. For starters, unfortunately, it wasn't until 2019, according to this report, that members of the military were encouraged to report unidentified flying objects. I think they call them UAPs or something like that. Unidentified craft, etc. But so the first thing we found out from the report is that they were sweeping it under the rug and that there was no formal way for people to report based on, I'm sorry, my cat's playing with the blinds. She wants to look outside, which of course changes the light. I was trying to keep the light down because of the heat. Anyway, so here is what the report says. It says that the flying objects fall into 5 different categories. First being that they are experimental aircraft that the United States is playing with, that we're keeping under wraps because it involves new technology, et cetera, et cetera. And in fact, when they did research many of these, the majority of these, that is exactly what it was. It was either It can be falling space debris, falling off of planes, etc. When it's basically space trash. That was one of the ideas. The other could be that it's us doing experimental craft, like some of the new drone systems, etc. And they're just not public yet. And the third thing it could be somebody else. It could be the Russians. The fourth is that it's optical illusions. It's, it's a cloud. It's something like that. Enemy adversary is the one thing they're really concerned about. If it's a Russia and China, a North Korea, or another country that has this type of capability and is keeping it under wraps, that's of great concern to U.S. intelligence. And then the fifth, it goes under the category of other, meaning we don't know what it is, but they're calling it other. It does not fall into the other four categories. In terms of what some of these craft are, some people in the military, both in the U.S. and in other countries, have been experimenting with what are called holographic images, where they can literally create spheres and things floating, playing with lights. It looks like it's a solid object, and it's one way to deter the enemy in warfare. Say, for example, you were to send out a drone, but you create holographic images. You're able to construct them of multiple drones, hundreds of drones. And so you don't know which drone is the actual drone. And so it becomes a way of cloaking in wartime. So if you see a large drone and lights and things are flying around out of it, it can be terrifying to a civilian, but it may be part of this military training where we're creating these fake drones and fake holographic images to freak out the military, which is interesting. The other category also goes into a series of other categories. So now we have the other. We can't identify it. So here are some of the ongoing theories about what the other is. The first is that it's an advanced technology from someone else, aliens or a life form, possibly that's been on Earth for a very long time, and that it's coming from some alien civilization somewhere that somehow has developed this type of advanced technology and is now, for whatever reason, tracking humans, doing research, possibly genetic testing. This is one of the other theories. Now, there's a second theory that is under wraps that physicists have begun, physicists at NASA, physicists within the intelligence agencies that are working on experimental craft, say the thing that's freaking them out is that these craft look a lot like the crafts that newer models of crafts that we're working on right now. In plain words, the second theory is that it's us. The second theory is that the UFOs are us in the future. And this is a legitimate theory that some of the physicists have. The argument goes like this. There are people in the scientific community that are working on the hypothesis that we're going to be able to eventually get to time travel. Why not? I mean, people are dematerializing and getting benefits from the federal government for being abducted, right? And John McCain is making sure that abducted soldiers get their benefits. This is where we're at. So who's abducting who? Is it somebody from outer space, or is it us? Is it us? We eventually get there 100 years from now. Somebody like an Elon Musk 200, 300 years ago eventually conquers time travel. If we're seeing different species, different aliens, who's to say we didn't create them? Who's to say that isn't what we evolve into 1 million, 2 million years from now? But they've been here since the dinosaurs. If you do time travel, you can go to see the dinosaurs. You can go to time doesn't exist any longer because you've cracked the code. So we're out there terrified of the other, and the other may in fact be us in a time loop. And just as all humans are not good, not everybody who advances and moves forward into the future, future humans, beings, etc., is not always necessarily going to be nice. So that's that is actually, even though it looks like people in the military are afraid to say what they suspect, but when you look at the saucer and say, yeah, we're working on something very similar, but we're not going to have this capability for another 100, 200 years. And then you sit there and pause and say, oh my God, I think it's us. That is probably the leading hypothesis right now for the other more than aliens. And the reason why they're saying that is because these craft look exactly like something you'd see at Star Trek. So whoever these people are, they watch a lot of American films and TV, right? So again, it goes into that idea of it's our technology several hundred years from now, or 1,000,000 years from now. Why not? If you've conquered time and you're going where no person has gone before, why not? So what would be the direct imperative of Star Trek if it's us? You don't want to freak your great-great-great-great-grandparents out, so you've got to cloak yourself. At the same time, you want to exist, so you've got to go in and you've got to change things a little bit, like shut down nuclear weapons, not freak out, but freak out your great-great-grandparents enough to where they agree on unilateral nuclear deproliferation, right? So that's the theory. Honestly, I think it's the most logical one because there were 21 unexplained phenomenon that were mentioned in the report. Other that, by the way, they said that they were emitting radio frequencies with multiple, with some of these pulses, etc. It's basically stuff we're working on right now, but we don't think we're going to be able to create for a very long time, maybe even hundreds and hundreds of years into the future. All right, so now let's talk about the remote. When I meditated on these phenomenon in the past, I saw that the lights had something to do with the band or the wavelength. I had not had physics. I minored in chemistry, but once you leave school, but that was what, 20, 30 years ago? You forget a lot of stuff. And then somebody reminded me, no, the shorter band is red, etc. So I went back, I opened up some old books and said, okay, now I remember my chemistry. Now I remember it. I just had to open a book. Okay. So basically what's happening is that you have an atom. You have an atom. And an atom has various different shells. It has various different areas on it where there are substances moving around called electrons. And when the electrons get stimulated and come to the surface and bounce back, they release energy in the form of light, which we call photons. Yeah, I did. I went back and reviewed. So the more energy, the further in the shells that the electrons are being stimulated will be a change in the light spectrum. So you have the superficial mild stimulation of the atom's outer shell electron bouncing back, you're going to get a red, whereas the deeper levels, you're going to get like purple. So that would be backwards then. So if they're using high energy, you're going to see purple rays. If they're using low energy or trying to be stationary, right, it's like they're on a lower energy, you're going to see white light energy and red energy, white, red, and yellow. And then purple are going to be the stronger energy. So if you remember what I looked at, it's a multiple propulsion system. It's a multiple propulsion system that, did I throw out those old notes? I apologize. It's a multiple propulsion system so that, I'll show it again. So that each light is its own propulsion system. They can work together. They can work together. They can be synchronized. You can also shut them down or put them at low energy. And this is how it can move in various different areas as multiple propulsion systems are turned on or off. And speed is depending on how fast the energy is moving in each propulsion system. Then I did a remote view trying to see inside the battery or the propulsion system. And I thought that was kind of really cool because it did look like something that humans would invent hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And this is how my brain constructed it. Understand that when you're a remote viewer, you don't see things exactly how they are. Some people do. It's more the general idea or the general feel of it. This is what I found when I cut off the top. When I did a horizontal slice, I did vertical and horizontal slices to try and see what these propulsion systems look like. And what I found was that there appears to be energy being produced. It almost looks like the electron transport chain, how we produce ATP in the human body, but it requires energy in the form of ATP, right? But what I saw when I looked in is that this is self-generating. In plainer words, these coils are moving from the energy that's being produced as the electrons are stimulated and the photons are released, and that propels energy and movement. And it's self-generating, so it doesn't require any, you don't have to add gas or anything. It's like ping pong balls. And the faster it goes, the faster the system goes, the more propulsion, the more power. This looks like some type of advanced fuel cell technology. It's the cells themselves and the way that they're moving that is generating friction. It looks like friction to me. That's how I feel when I go into this as an empath and a remote viewer. I feel like I'm being exposed to some type of a friction that's causing the electrons to be stimulated in the outer shells, producing this type of photon energy. And the energy it's producing is driving the engine to produce more energy. So you can see from my notes, this is a vertical slice. You've got the battery, you've got light coils. They're coils that spin and they produce photons from electrons, and then that is used in propulsion. The speed of the coils, the speed with which the coils move, determines the electrons being stimulated, and we should see an output of colors determining the speed. Not saying I'm right, could be my imagination, but that is where my head went when I meditated on these craft. It looked like it was human invented in the future. Any questions about that? Time travelers is that's, look, they're not going to publicly say this to people. First off, there would be a big problem, because if they tell us that it'd be better for them to think we were aliens than, by God, we did it. We mastered time. Because according to Carl Sagan, according to all the brilliant physicists, we're going to get there. We're going to be able to do this, and we're going to be able to beam people up, Scotty. These are ideas that people have been writing about, and those ideas have been inspiring scientists. So what's to keep all of this from happening, say, 1 million years, 10 million years, 100 million years from now? Life is going to look pretty bizarre to us and terrifying, because knowledge is power. And when you don't have the knowledge, it can be terrifying. Just like if people in Italy during the Renaissance saw a plane flying by, or saw somebody talking on a cell phone and heard a voice coming out, it's not scary to us because we understand the technology. But if we were a future traveler that showed up there, it would be horrifying. It would be absolutely terrifying. And when you look at the genetic testing and experimentation that we're doing now, theoretically, what would we be producing? It may explain some of the, and if an animal or some kind of genetic test got loose, we're already having this problem. We have farmed salmon that are genetically being modified that have now made their way into the wild streams, etc., because we are now starting this type of genetic mutations, etc. And it could also be other beings. But I'm beginning to think it's us. I'm beginning to think some of this is us because it's the most logical explanation. Also, we would care about nuclear weapons. We would have empathy and compassion for our ancestors. Whereas that might not necessarily be true for an advanced society somewhere else. Whoever and whatever these beings are, they care about us enough to shut down our nuclear plants and try and keep us from killing ourselves. So that suggests empathy. They're using their advanced skills to try and save us. Why would they do that? Why would they care? So again, it goes back to this theory by some of the physicists that we're actually seeing ourselves in the future. Crazy conversations, right? Wow. Time is all we have, and time doesn't exist, right? Who said that? Was that Terrence? It was Terrence McKenna. Dr. Bruce Goldberg. Yeah, I mean, the theory has been bouncing around, but the technology is secret. If we're already working on these advanced technologies at like Area 51 and the general population is not know what it is, but you're showing it to advanced physicists that are working on this, and they can look and say, oh, it's a multiple propulsion system. It's self-generating. And so the battery never runs out. And it doesn't require air. It doesn't require fuel. It doesn't need to have a fuel signature because it's a self-renewing fuel cell. The cell itself is creating the fuel. The friction of the cell and the friction being produced by the cell is the energy. And that energy is used to drive the cell more, and it can be stored. That's what we're working on, and that's what we get to. All right. Thank you, Holly. Thank you for that generous donation. And maybe there's also aliens. Who knows? Maybe in the future we listen to Elon Musk, we go out, we see the great universe, we figure out time, we go off, we piss off, we pick fights with other beings and other planets a million years from now. They come back and they're engaged in some type of, who knows, maybe we're in the middle of a war and we don't know it, right? It's this future people showing, hey, we had not, go after our great grandkids, don't come after us, right? Funny, isn't it crazy that we live in this time where it's so cool because I have friends who are physicists at the University of Washington, people who have met John Nash. And they say, if you only knew what we are talking about at the University of Washington, the people who are getting their, doctoral degrees there, but they're actually talking about this stuff. All right. Oh, thank you, Redwoods. I am going to buy myself a glass of iced tea, and my friend Renee and I are going to have a lot of good time. I'm bringing, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll see some aliens. There's a lot of them on the Oregon coast. I'm going to take pictures. All right. We've been going for over 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and do some the empath prayer. We'll do a collective reading for everybody. Collective reading is starting at 30, 4:50. Everybody ready to rock and roll? Should we be in honor of LGBTQ? Let's go ahead and use our senior deck today. All right, let's do the empath prayer. I love you too. Kitty's looking at me. Okay, I want to call on white light protection for myself and this community as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and good angels to be with us. Please give us the clarity and the wisdom that is needed to empower all of us on our journeys, to make the best decisions for ourselves, our families, the planet, the people we love, but also to help those we may have strife with. And together collectively as a community, we say, Amen. Amen. Let's give you all a reading. Why couldn't that have been your math teacher? You know, I had to repeat algebra like so many times. Where we are at right now, it's still the same as before last week, where only now I think it's because of the weather, and this is a very active time in the calendar, at least in this hemisphere, whereas I guess they're in winter over in beautiful Australia, Africa, etc. But regardless of where you live, this is a time where people are really beginning to think about and meditate on this idea of healing for themselves, healing for the planet. It reminds me of the Feel Good Festival. For those people who will be joining me, we're July 17th and 18th, I'll be in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll be speaking at the Feel Good Festival on this idea of evolving towards creating a beautiful world, cooperation, etc. The base of the matter for all of us continues to be the Page of Cups. Now, in mythology, there are a lot of different archetypes you can associate with the Page of Cups, but you know, it can be a child, often a Pisces child. You can see the little fish in the cup, so there's a water aspect to it. Fish is an interesting idea. For example, on Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, we will often, they will talk about the head of the fish. Sometimes people will serve the fish whole so that you can look at the head, because it's this idea of being the head of the year, intelligence, wisdom. There's also a lot of omega-3s in the fish head, so it was prized in some communities because it was considered good for the brain. So healing the brain, omega-3s, right, which you can get from vegan sources. You don't have to eat meat, fish, but if you want to eat fish, there's ways to do that sustainably. But again, it goes back to this idea of the water and the healing waters and the elixirs, the healing elixirs. This is one of the reasons why right now we have a join for elders, people that want to do kitchen table wisdom, just in terms of simple things they can do to heal themselves, to heal others. It's this idea of coming together to help people feel better, to feel good, to make the planet better. And it's really the fundamental nature of why we are here. We are here to be happy. I mean, that's the fundamental teachings in Buddhism, but it's not hedonistic happiness. It's not relative to, oh, I felt good today, so I'm happy. It's a deep, profound understanding of happiness that comes from living a life of purpose and value, working to alleviate suffering, working to create a world that's beautiful for everyone. There's a lot going on with this community about resolving issues of morals and ethics. One of the things that has come up for many of us is the issue of when do you walk away and when do you stay and fight the good fight? Forgive and forget if a injustice has occurred and not been righted may not be the best course if the person who has committed the crime or the action against you has not changed and is potentially harming other people. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you cannot resolve patterns from the past or anger and animosity from the past, burying it and moving on may actually be not only bad for your health, but morally questionable. And we can see the karma card here is an inverted 2 of Pentacles, which I read as the flim-flam man or con artist or questionable moral character. If you look at the 2 of Pentacles, you can see that the waters are rocky. You can see he's juggling the coin. He's dressed like a clown. It can be irresponsibility, tricksters. It's the spoiled nephew who doesn't want to grow up, who lies in order to get his auntie to buy him whatever he wants, but then doesn't want to go to school. It's that type of an energy. There's an immaturity and an immaturity of finance also associated with this card, as well as corruption, fraud, etc. It's a card we often see associated with people who engage in fraud, money laundering, etc. It's inverted. And so an inversion, as I would interpret it, would be moving away from questionable finances, people who may be taking advantage of you financially, establishing healthy boundaries, and possibly even pursuing actions against someone like that. Where you're at right now in the immediate future, again, the same as last week. The 2 of Swords, which is about hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. It can be rigid in its refusal to hear, see, or be exposed to something. And sometimes it can be denial, refusing to see something that's in front of you, putting your head in the sand because you may not want to see things for who and what they really are. What crosses you today? It's in the grave. There was something you were in denial about, people, trickery, not wanting to believe that certain people in your life were a certain way. It's not our job to sacrifice our mental health and our finances and our safety at the expense of what is morally and ethically right for everyone involved. An example would be, say you're the victim of an assault and you go to a therapist and the focus is all on you getting well, as it should be. But the therapist, the people in charge of protecting citizens, instead of focusing on the person that committed the crime and getting them off the streets so that they don't create more victims, instead focuses on the victim as the problem and what can we do about the victim. And that's really kind of to miss the point. And it's not healing, because unfortunately the monsters of this world get bigger because we have acquiesced. And what I see over and over again in these cards is that the time has come for survivors and advocates where they no longer are comfortable with simply brushing it under the rug and saying, well, forgive and forget. This is a time when we can no longer put our heads in the sand. Any kind of injustice against the planet, what they're doing in DC with our money, the fact that billions of dollars of my tax dollars are going to support things that I don't believe in or are potentially being stolen. So there's some aspect here that we can no longer be in denial as we were in the past, or that we can no longer suppress our own anger and rage and feelings of injustice and be guilt tripped that we're the problem and that we need to forgive and that we need to move on if the underlying cause or problem has not been corrected. Justice ye shall pursue, right? That is the motto of, that is in the Torah. It's a huge part of what we see, for example, in the Queen of Wands. We don't want to fight. Nobody wants to fight, right? If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna did everything in his power to not fight, right? It's about him pleading to God that he does not want to go to this war because he's a nice guy. And in the end, he has to accept the fact that unfortunately, we've gotten to a point now where we have to fight. And there are all kinds of fights. Line 3, the fact that our Gaia's circulatory system, her waters are polluted, which will kill us all, because we are her living on a planet. We are her conscious of herself, and we are Gaia conscious of herself, understanding what the prime directive is, which is to make this world a beautiful place for everyone and expand that love and goodness into the universe, into infinity. This is the fundamental nature of Gaia, of love, of our nature. And unfortunately, some of us are off grid. I mean, the best way to describe somebody with a personality disorder, somebody who is wrapped up in this type of trickery, is that they are unplugged. They're not connected to the prime directive. And for that reason, for the good of everyone, they have to be held accountable for their actions, and in some cases removed from the general population. And that sometimes means we have to fight, even if we don't want to. What remains above us, the family of origin, our inheritance, what we will leave after we are gone. What do you want your legacy to be? Understand that you are creating your legacy right here and now, in this moment. You are creating the karma that will come to you in the future based on your actions today. If we look at the 10 of Pentacles, it has both a positive aspect, like all cards, and a negative aspect as well. 10 of Pentacles is associated with legacy, but it's also unfortunately associated with family secrets. If you look closely at the 10 of Pentacles, you can see that there's a child hiding behind the veil, denoting potentially potential children coming in, new generations from behind the veil. We can also see that there is the senior man watching. It can also be spying or watching, people potentially gossiping secrets. It can also be familial abuse. It sits in the 4th house, which means that it is something that we are all collectively thinking about. Duty. What does duty mean to you? You know, in a way, we have all inherited a kingdom. We want to believe that we can give that responsibility to someone else. Oh, you're a king, you go make it right. Oh, you're a queen, you go make it right. But what I'm hearing and seeing in the cards is that we all have a kingdom. We all are building a kingdom of our own. And it is our responsibility to decide what duty, honor, and integrity for the world we're creating for ourselves, our families, our loved ones, etc. And if you have employees, people working for you, what does your kingdom look like? Maybe your kingdom is just you and your cat, right? But regardless of how big your kingdom or legacy is, you have the choice today to define how you will be remembered in history. What sits below you? The trials and tribulations of your family's legacy is what you sit and marinate in. The 9 of Swords. It's what you sit in. It's what keeps you up at night. It can also be concerns about your legacy and family in relationship to you. Did I get everything right? Our greatest love is often our greatest source of frustration. We truly love our families, even when our families do things they shouldn't do. The degree to which we love it can often be the degree to which we are tormented. What sits in our past? Patience. You have learned patience as much as you didn't want to. You have learned to sit and do the work and to seek balance. 1 foot in the water, 1 foot in land, 1 foot in the dream world, imagining what could be and should be, and 1 foot firmly grounded in this world, seeking balance, right? Okay, and the future, the near future for us, a loss of old partnerships or foundations could indicate that some relationships are coming to an end. Possibly relationships are ending due to some feeling that certain people you're having a relationship with right now are not living up to your ethical or moral standards. And unfortunately, this could be the end of partnerships associated with your family or your family's legacy. Where you are at right now, you have made a decision. The 7th house is the immediate environment. You've made a decision regarding these challenges. You can't continue to be in denial. You can't continue to put your head in the sand and hope that the bad people will go away. The other, the enemy or the opposition in relationship to you. Angry, vindictive, covering up the truth, hiding secrets, dedicated to creating a false narrative. The main thing about the inverted high priestess is that it's vindictive. It's not just about suppressing things. It's about an angry, cruel, vindictive energy when someone attempts to get information. It could be also because the high priestess is the moon or the hidden light or the being illuminated, right? Imuna in Hebrew, right? The fact that this individual or individuals you may be having conflict with are in opposition to the truth, attempting to suppress truth, can be vindictive when pressured. You're seeing very clearly the situation. You're not confused. Partnerships are ending. It's in the grave that you put your head in the sand because your health is more important and the health of the planet. It's not just your health at this point. If someone's toxic and they're unplugged, they're putting the whole planet at risk, which means you have to do something. We're not entitled to sit on our hands sometimes and just hope good things will happen. Oy, gewaltig mir. The hope and the fear, the star, the anointing, sometimes not wanting to draw attention to certain things. Oh God, I don't want the light on me. I don't want the light on this. I don't want everybody to hate me if I come out. The fear of discovery, the fear of being seen, the light bulb on you. What are people going to think about me if they find out ABC? Right? And the final outcome for us, the contracts are over. The karma is completed because you righted the wrong so that you could forgive and move on. But these contracts, the only way to come out of this is by acknowledging what is and not spinning fantasies about what could have been, should have been, or fantasies about the relationship in order to psychologically cope and put your head in the sand. That has changed. That is not what is happening now. The clarification cards. You've done the work and you are about your business. 10 of Wands is the 7th house. You're working your ass off. It doesn't mean you have to totally terminate these relationships. It's just that you have to put these relationships in perspective. You can see by saving your own life and being strong in your values, you actually help the people you're having conflict with. Not by being a doormat, not by lying down and taking it, but by saying, I've made a sound judgment that your behavior is toxic and inappropriate. And I'm going to go out and be about my business and take care of myself because I'm in firm judgment. And you and your vindictive behavior and impossible behavior has driven me out of your life. And when Look, I hope you change. I do. I'm not an angry, terrible person. I'm a loving person who's about their business, but I just can't be around you. We see a transformation in the other as the Ace of Cups, as they attempt to right the wrong as you are driven away from them. Justice we pursue by holding them accountable, but we also have to be about our business. Don't waste your time trying to change people. Save yourself. That's what changes people. They see you as you see yourself, as someone with self-respect who takes your mission in life seriously. You've got a lot of work to do, by the way. We all have to save this planet. We understand the prime directive. That's why we're here today. Getting sucked into some con artist tricksters BS who doesn't want to do the work is a waste of your time, and it's not helping anybody. It's actually doing a lot of harm. This is kind of looking like codependence. They're saying you don't have to give up. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But not everybody has to be total termination. But there's a desperate need to readdress your relationships, particularly with those people who are currently not respecting you. And that's not ego. That's necessary to create a healthy society. If we do not respect ourselves and others, civilization collapses. And unfortunately, families collapse as well. And so self-respect and self-protection and appropriate boundaries are necessary if you want to evolve spiritually. And that's your reading. Oh, my friend is here. Hi, Sheila. The other half of the remote view show. Sheila's here. She's another great remote viewer. Wow, that was pretty intense. Similar to what happened last week. See, that's the thing. I don't want to fight. I don't want to go up to battle and, when I have conflicts. My nature is to just put my head in the sand. Okay, you'll get yours someday. This is what people said. You look at some of the testimonies of people who survived Ted Bundy, and it's heartbreaking, the shame that those women feel because they didn't report. People who escaped Bundy in his early days that were assaulted, but they were ashamed or embarrassed, and so they didn't report, and then he went on to kill other people. There comes a point when, for the good of all, we must fight. Okay, so it's a shame. Sometimes the people that treat us the worst are the people who should be protecting us the most. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start some blitzes. Who I was meditating on, where this spiritual information came from? I was thinking about Malcolm X and his autobiography and some of what was written by Malcolm X and how radical he was presented by the FBI, that, the FBI basically declared war on him. And all he said is, if you come into my home and try to rape my wife, I'm going to shoot you in the head. A man has a right to protect his children and his family from assault by any means necessary. My primary job as your husband and you're the father of these kids, I got to keep my family safe. If you come into you do not have the right to rape and kill my wife or me. If you come in, I don't want to kill you. I don't want to fight. But if you threaten my family, by any means necessary, I will fight. And that's morally the higher ground. We don't let predators come in. We don't let people harm us. And if you have so little regard for your own life and have no understanding of what your human rights are, how can you grant it to anybody else? How can you fight for those rights in another when you haven't even given it to yourself? All right, we're going to go ahead and begin the blitzes now. And the main question I'm getting from people right now has to do with the building collapse. We can talk a little bit about it. It looks like the building collapse took place at the Champlain, hope I'm pronouncing that right, the Champlain Towers. They were the South condominium building in Surfside, Florida. It appears there are 150 people missing. The mayor, Charles Burkett, says that they've been given a lot of resources, but unfortunately time is running out. When I did a remote view last couple days, it looked like the area had gotten extremely moist from moisture, and then it would dry and crack, and it looked like molding came in. And so what happened was there was mold and moisture, and then when it would dry out, it would expand from the moisture, and then when it would dry out, it would crack. And then in those cracks from the mold, cracks from when it would dry, it would result in mold. And so when I remote viewed it, it looked like this. You had the 4 main posts that looked like they were metal bars. They were completely stable because that wasn't the area that was problematic in the terms of the structure of the building. So I felt like that survived even the collapse. The problem I was focused on was the under cement area here. Looks like it's could be under the actual parking structures as well. Because what happened was you had all this area taking the weight from all the moisture, and the decomposition and cracking and mold was taking place here. And so eventually it was trapped. It was trapped due to poor airflow, and eventually this inner structure collapsed. So we'll go ahead now and we'll throw cards to see if anyone's going to survive or if we can get some more information about that. Sound good? Is Renee here? Is my friend Renee here? Renee, I'll be free after 12:30. No, I don't think this was Trump, Foggy, because the building was inspected years ago. As much as we would like to blame Trump for everything, there are plenty of people that are involved in corruption in Florida, not just Trump. I'll do a blitz. It's just going to be 4 cards. Oh, nobody even gave me hey, wait a minute. I didn't get the call. Nobody said blitz, blitz, blitz away. Isn't that the tradition here? We have to give the call. Hi, Mila. Hi. I'm okay. How are you? What you looking for? You want some water? Your water's over there. I poured you a bunch of water. I love you. You got your dad down there. Look at that. Yeah. We have weird, for those of you who are new, we do some silly things. I don't know who invented that, but somebody started that whole tradition of blitz, blitz, blitz away. And then we just think it's funny. All right. Thank you. I got the call. We have silly traditions here. You know, we've been doing this for over 3 years. I feel old. Can you believe that? We've been doing this every Sunday for 3 years. Time moves on. The building collapse. Thank you, Christopher, for that generous donation. Very appreciated, Christopher Guala. Yeah, there's an investigation that's going on with the insurance company, and it looks like what happened was that there were multiple attempts. I'm in the Akashic field, so I can tell you based on these cards what happened. It looks like the company that was overseeing inspection for the building walked away in disgust because they repeatedly attempted to contact the owners of the building about structural damage, and when they got no response, they gave up. Well, we can see here the Five of Swords. They attempted multiple times to reach people. They gave the conclusion. They didn't want to spend the money. They felt that it was too much money to do the repairs that were being suggested by the people who had looked at the repairs, or maybe they felt that the estimate, the amount of money that they were requesting and the results that they were getting was too expensive, and so they simply chose to ignore it. There were repeated attempts made by the people that were checking the structural security, and they were ignored, so eventually they had to give up. Maybe the building said, we'll get to it eventually. It's going to cost too much. We'll find somebody who can do it for less, etc. Well, delay, ignore leads to a situation with the building where they have basically put themselves in this situation. We can see the Eight of Swords, which is to put yourself in a situation that you cannot get out of. We can see an investigation happening here, and possibly even a federal investigation. As you know, if you've been watching the channel for a while, the Queen of Pentacles is my feds or my investigation card. And I'm sorry to say, the fourth card is the Two of Pentacles, which is trickery, can also be fraud, some questionable activities that were financial, and unfortunately, being cheap, being questionable with money, ignoring repeated warnings by the people who had done the inspection, put them in this situation. And unfortunately, based on this card, it could lead to actual criminal charges, because at this point, based on what I am picking up and based on these cards, we're looking at possible federal charges. You know, it goes back to apathy, right? This is something we're seeing over and over and over again. Don't be apathetic. Don't walk away from the work. Because if you walk away from the work, it's only going to get worse later. People don't want to fight. I don't want to spend the money. It's got moisture damage, and the structure is capturing too much moisture, and eventually the whole thing becomes a moldy, wet disaster. And this is what happens when you trap moisture in this part of the world. Eventually, the structure is going to become unstable. They were given ample time, and you know, it's obvious what happened. You know, corruption. They didn't want to spend the money, or money that was supposed to be earmarked, and possibly even insurance companies could be under investigation if the insurance companies refused the advice of the inspectors because they didn't want to spend the money. So we could also be looking at fraudulent insurance companies. Let's do the clarification. I'll take a look at that now, Foggy. Unbelievable. They'll be charged with negligence. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing survivors here. This is what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing anybody alive. They're saying that there's a fire burning under the rubble, and so it's making them think they're not even going to be able to get remains in some areas. I'm seeing progress happening very, very quickly in terms of, because they're now using special equipment, etc. But this is an investigation into corruption and foolish behavior that led to the collapse. My concern here is that they're only going to be able to get them on negligence. Because this looks almost like insurance companies or fraud in insurance companies, or potentially refusing certain companies that were supposed to cover this didn't, something like this is also coming up. And so we could also see this spinning off into investigations about fraudulent insurance companies. Wow, that was depressing. Okay, moving on. I think the thing that makes me so angry is that if all they're going to be charging for that they were foolish or negligent as opposed to, homicide. If you know that that's going to happen, if the experts are telling you this is going to happen, then you have a moral responsibility to take care of it and not just brush it in the, I don't want to spend the money. Unfortunately, not wanting to spend the money has led to the deaths of a lot of people. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to cover today has to do with a trial that is currently, I'm trying to do more of the international news stories. As many of you know, things are heating up in the trial that's taking place in Jordan. Jordan is a country next to Israel, and it looks like Prince Hamza, who was one of the people in line to the throne, is currently being accused of attempting to overthrow the royal family of Jordan. We have two people that are being currently charged for sedition and an attempt to overthrow the royal family. The first is Basim Awadallah. He was the finance minister, and he also had close relationships with the Saudi Arabian government. He's close friends of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, another man is also a confidant of Mohammed bin Salman, as well as the royal family, and that's Sharif Hassan bin Zayed. Both of them are currently under trial. Prince Hamza is not going to be charged, it looks like, but he is currently under house arrest, and they're keeping a close eye on him, but it's unlikely he will be charged because they say it would be too embarrassing for the royal family. I'm just going to go ahead and throw some cards on this instability in Jordan. Obviously, this has created a lot of tension between Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Jordan's between a rock and a hard place because they're trying to have a peaceful relationship with Israel. I think something like 80% of their population is Palestinian. The Queen is Palestinian. So obviously they're concerned about human rights violations in Israel, but you have Kushner's relationship with bin Salman potentially attempting to overthrow that. But by the way, this is the most progressive monarchy they've ever had with the new king and queen. But regardless, it looks like the Saudi Arabians may have been behind it in an attempt to take control over what was going on in that area. Let's go ahead and throw some cards on it. And we'll see if Kushner was involved. Do we even have to ask? Kushner's card is the King of Pentacles, by the way. It's the first time I've been scared to stay in Portland because of heat. Okay, this is on the trial. Okay, so the first thing I'm getting is the prosecutors, and the prosecutors are saying that they have solid evidence, that it's pretty much a slam dunk, that they have the communications, text, etc. You can see the prosecution comes in with a magician card. As far as they're concerned, it's pretty obvious what they were attempting to do. They were attempting to run a coup. They're being charged with sedition because they did it. It looks like the king of Saudi Arabia is requesting that they be returned back to Saudi Arabia. King bin Salman's card is actually the King of Wands. I feel that for the good of everyone, they're going to have to try and make things right between themselves and Saudi Arabia. It looks like Saudi Arabia is going to write off some people. Well, you were my loyal subject yesterday, but today I don't know you. Unfortunately, there's a 5 of Pentacles here attached to Salman bin Salman, which would suggest that like the people who killed Khashoggi, he is simply going to throw them to the wolves and cut the cord in terms of his loyalty to them. The final aspect for this case is that the trial probably won't last very long. I have a feeling with this Knight of Pentacles moving in, which is that they present the case and then the case closes fairly soon, that I don't think they want this trial to be going on too long. I don't see that they're, let's see how this winds up. Salman is attempting to heal by sending love and healing and positive. We hope positive. I'm so horrified by what has happened in Jordan. He comes with the cup. The evidence is, again, pretty conclusive. You were behind this. In term for the good, look, the advisors to the royal family are going to be able to decide how this plays itself out, and it's going to be the experts and the masters and the advisors that determine it. It's over. I don't see anybody in jail. If they do get in jail, it's not going to be for long. I think they're going to be found guilty and expelled. I don't know if they're going to be killed. I don't see death. I don't see imprisonment. It would be bad. It would be bad for diplomacy if they prosecuted them aggressively. It could actually create more problems in terms of their relationship with Saudi Arabia. So for that reason, it looks like the experts are going to come up with some way of dealing with it without creating a potential rift between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. All right. Pretty dang cool. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more blitzes. We've got 9 minutes. And then I guess I'm going to go grab my swimsuit and get out of here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now. We have a question from Foggy Ozark wanting to see how was the State Department potentially involved with any of this? Did they know about this? What was the relationship, or particularly with the assassination of Khashoggi? Let's take a look. Yeah, 90. I can live with 95. I can't live with 115 if the grid goes down. That's the problem. There's evidence against Pompeo, and he could be actually facing consequences. You can see the high priestess, which is evidence being presented that will be devastating. There's also, yes, there's evidence that the State Department was possibly involved, even as far as assassinations or attempts to harm people. 10 of Swords can be stabbed in the back. I believe Khashoggi was an American citizen, or he had a green card. So to be betrayed by the people that should trust you. So if the state, with these types of cards, it's very likely that the State Department did have some involvement or knew about it in terms of a strong relationship between the State Department or good relations between Saudi Arabia and the United States. And also it was profitable. But this is Pompeo's card. I think there is evidence that Pompeo and the State Department knew and were complicit, yes. The fact that that the high priestess is there, the fact that there have been a ton of people reporting problems in the State Department, the fact that there were people appear to be people in the State Department that were whistleblowers in several different areas of the State Department, the fact that there's a high priestess there leads me to suspect that this is an ongoing investigation. Hi, Miss Brazil. That, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people just want to fight the good fight. And unfortunately, in Florida, there's going to be a lot of fights because apathy and laziness is what happened. Just like with the Derek Chauvin trial, there were so many times, there were so many warnings. There were so many people that got hurt, people died, and they just brushed it under the rug because they didn't want to deal with it, and because this kind of thing happened, and people were complaining about him, other officers, they just swept it under the rug. And then goes back to what the reading was today for all of us. This is what happens when you say, he'll get his eventually. Well, why isn't he getting his now? Why are you letting this person off the hook to create more victims? That makes us all culpable, right? And so unfortunately, that's what happened here. The insurance agencies that didn't want to pay for certain things are culpable for those deaths, and the people that didn't want to spend the money are culpable for the deaths. And so when we do nothing and put our heads in the sand, unfortunately, that's like acquiescing or giving more territory to people who are a threat to everyone's safety. And that's basically what happened. In the case of Pompeo and the State Department, I would say this is not going to go well for him. Again, it goes back to strong evidence suggesting involvement from the State Department. Oh, good to see you, Anna. Hi. Okay, we've got time for one more throw. Hi, Jackie. All right, so Jackie is talking about the fact that we have a new variant of COVID. It seems to have been a mutation that's coming from India, and unfortunately has made its way here to the United States. And I believe it's one of the fastest growing variants in the United States right now, also one of the fastest growing in Great Britain. The good news is you're probably going to be okay if you've been vaccinated, but let's go ahead and see how this plays itself out. If you can't get vaccinated, people are upset. There are a lot of people that can't, with compromised immune systems, people with HIV, people who are on certain types of chemotherapy, people who are on, who suffer from autoimmune conditions or that are on certain types of medicines that can compromise cell-mediated immunity. Those people, unfortunately, may not be eligible for vaccination. And, the frustration is, am I going to have to spend the rest of my life like this? Let's take a look. Scientific community is definitely looking at this. As I've mentioned in the past, 5 of Wands can be a fighting card, but it's also a card of education and exchange of ideas. It's also a theater card for people who love the theater. Take a look at this. It's the Merry Men. It's kind of like Shakespeare's Merry Men, and they're all, they say that they're constructing a stage to do a play, performance. They're not actually hitting each other. No one's hitting anybody. However, when you get a card like this, the negative aspects, it can be fighting, but it usually has to do with passionate exchange, sometimes the theater. It's also strongly associated with education, because education is about exchanging ideas between people, hopefully so that we have more information. You can see a new road developing here. So I think there's an exchange of ideas, schooling, knowledge, probably from the scientific community, that leads to new decisions. The concern here about the Delta variant is because COVID-19 is associated with inflammation, the body's immune system. It mounts an inflammatory response, and that's associated with coronary. If you already have coronary artery disease, hypoxia, trouble getting oxygen to the tissue, and you get an infection like this, you're going to be vulnerable. 3 of Swords, heart disease, coronary artery disease, inflammatory diseases. We have cooperation probably in the schooling or the scientific community, education or exchange of ideas, and then lovers. So people are still at risk. People are still at risk, but it's definitely about exchanging ideas, a new time for the scientific community, probably under Biden, so where people can really begin to communicate again. I'll do the clarification for people. Yeah, see the microscope. 4 of Pentacles has an aspect to it of serious examination. It's a frugality card. It's a restricted card, but it's also a card of the camera, the microscope. I think of this also as the Buddha card because I'm a modern Buddhist, and we have something in the modern Buddhist tradition called Butsudan. Gohonzon is the scroll inside the Butsudan. And we meditate on it in an attempt to see our true nature or our deepest self. And so there's a microscopic aspect to the 4 of Pentacles. It also reminds me of the old cameras before they had like tripods and whatnot. They would often just hold them. Very cool. Yeah, new beginnings. New partnerships that didn't exist under the previous administration regarding coronary artery disease or concerns about inflammatory reactions. If you do become infected, the scientific community, you can see here, success after tears, victory, laurel wreath, healing. The scientific community is working on stabilizing people who get sick with COVID. By giving different types of medications. I know they're working on antivirals, helping with oxygenation of tissues, etc. The fact that the Ace of Swords is over the 3 of Swords would lead me to suspect that the scientific community is really going to be getting excellent at stabilizing patients so that we're seeing much less mortality. And over the Lover card, which again suggests new contracts and new relationships, we have 10 of Pentacles. We're building a new legacy. And it also means a new legacy and new friendships and partnerships with the scientific community that are only positive for the country. So that's good. All right. That was fun. Y'all have a good time? Yeah, Foggy Ozark. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of enough vaccines in some areas, and not everyone can get vaccinated. So there is another branch of the scientific community that's working on stabilizing patients and reducing side effects. And that looks to be like it will be successful. That's what the cards say. Okay, everybody, we did it. We did it. Woohoo! Stay cool, everyone. If you're in the Portland, Oregon area, I am headed to the coast. If you're headed to the coast too, maybe we will see you there. Please stay safe, everyone. And again, happy Pride, everyone. And if you are celebrating and you're out there dancing and partying, stay safe and protect each other. Don't go off by yourselves. Stay in groups. I hate to sound like your mother, but we want everyone happy and safe, and we want you coming back in one piece. All right. Thanks, everyone. Love and lights. If you're still trying to get in for a reading with me, you can go to tarotwithwhimsy.com. And if you need to see me as a physician, I do see patients telemedicine for naturopathic medicine. You can go to drwhimsy.com. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Drink fluids. Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated.